The question of whether the hashtag 5 should still be called smart, I'll spare you in this video. Still, let's take a look together at the very largest new smart model. And with that, hey and welcome to this brand new video here with Jonas, and welcome to the very first static impression of the smart hashtag 5. A video that a few colleagues here on YouTube had already uploaded a couple of weeks ago. I wasn't able to make it to the appointment back then, and that's why I'm here today at the actual driving event instead. Let's take a closer look at the car together in detail first. The driving test will be coming up soon, so make sure to subscribe to stay updated and not miss it. How this massive vehicle drives here. I haven't had the chance to drive it myself yet, so I won't risk sharing anything I'm not supposed to reveal at this stage. I do know, though, that we're doing a charging test tomorrow. We'll drive together and check how smartly they've managed to position a smart on this entirely different and significantly larger platform. We've already driven the Seeker 7X, which is built on the exact same platform. It already convinced me. Let's see how this one performs. We'll find that out, as I said, in 2 weeks. And today we're going to take a look at how this one performs visually. I find the proportions, the way it presents itself, really cool. I also drive a Kia EV9 myself, so of course such a boxy and large design is not necessarily to be dismissed. I actually really like it, and personally I also like what I'll call this gold tone. I know there's something about sand beige, not sure. I think it's actually pretty cool, to be honest. What do you guys think? Feel free to share it in the comments. With around 4.70 meters in length, 2.90 meters wheelbase, 1.92 meters in width, and 1.70 meters in height, it's really far from all that one would expect when hearing the name Smart for the first time in Germany. However, I think that purely based on its appearance and the way it presents itself, how it interprets the concept I was able to show you back then, and how it brings that concept quite close to reality on the road, very well done. The concept was much bigger back then, I see now. Standing here, it's more... A normal-sized car with these dimensions places it in the range where, for example, Tesla's Model Y sits, or, for that matter, the entire MEB platform family from Volkswagen, like the Q4 or also the ID.4 and so on, though they're actually a bit smaller, to be honest. With battery sizes ranging from 74.4 to 94 kilowatt hours, you've really got some powerful batteries under the floor. Those are equipped with either 400 volts for the LFP battery, which is naturally the smaller option, or 800 volts in the larger battery. And it's supposed to be capable of 4C charging. We'll clarify what that means later. The ranges are 465 kilometers for the small battery and up to 560 kilometers for the large one. And I can already spoil that. I'm unfortunately not allowed to drive this one, only the Brabus variant. Oh no, how terrible. Putting 645 horsepower on the road. In this body, in this styling, I think there are far worse things one could possibly experience at a driving event like this. But at some point, we'll also drive the premium version for you, and I also hope that we can test the base variant because I personally find it interesting to see how 400 and 800 volts actually differ in everyday life. Especially since LFP batteries are popular among many of you, I know that. So we'll take a closer look at that when we're up here. Let's briefly talk about the storage options under the hood. I can click a button on the key for that, which I find very cool. I'm curious to see if that will eventually make its way into the app, for example, since Smart also always has a digital key, which I'm a big fan of. I actually drive all the cars we have, whenever possible, always keyless because it's easier and you don't have to figure out which one you need at the moment. And hidden underneath are 47 or 72 liters of trunk space. I think it's really cool that you have so much room in there, making it super practical for everyday use. So that's pretty impressive because there's clearly a lot more room here than just for a charging cable, an energy kick, or those kinds of things. You can easily fit a sports bag in there. You guessed it right, we're definitely going to test it all out when we test the small battery version because it also has rear-wheel drive. Here there's even a little net where you can put things that you might need more often, maybe even the onboard tools or the first aid kit, and then you still have the space in front. And up here, you can remove a cover to easily access and top up all the essential fluids needed. And over here, there's something I'll test with you together. I don't want to risk breaking anything. Here you'll see the connections for the standard battery, and directly beneath that is where the washer fluid connects. Here's a small critique. I've always thought it's better placed outside this seal, so if you spill anything, it stays out here and doesn't end up inside the frunk. So to all manufacturers, please position that outside of the sealing lip. It's just smarter that way. We'll continue shortly with the storage options in the trunk, and there, just like with the hashtag 3, you need to click on the A, and then the trunk opens electrically. It provides a storage space of 630 to 1530 liters, depending on whether you fold it down or leave it upright. And you have an electrically adjustable rear seat, just to mention that at this point. And of course, there's plenty of room when it's fully upright, but it still offers a pretty decent seating position, and we'll talk more about that inside shortly. My issue with the trunk is you only achieve that full volume if you properly use the lower section. But it's not a classic double floor. It's only, I'd say, about 80% of the trunk space, so it doesn't fully utilize the entire area. And then there's a piece at the back that's just fixed. And when you lower the floor, you end up with a pretty noticeable step inside the trunk space itself, unfortunately. That's a real shame. It means for everyday use, you practically have to keep the upper floor in place and then pack other things underneath. And that's just not very practical, especially when you consider having to transport suitcases or anything like that. But underneath there's another compartment. It's not quite as big as the Frank Von, but it's still decently sized. Right now, the charging cable is in there. You could easily fit the Energy Kick along with all its adapters inside without any issues. This isn't an ad for it, but I'll just mention there's a 5% discount below the video if you're looking for a mobile wall box that also allows PV charging. The trunk is otherwise very nicely wide. In terms of height, we have a roller blind here. It limits the height a bit, but it's still reasonable. I'll stay a bit above it when the load floor is in its normal position. Yeah, I'm a bit mixed on this. Write in the comments, would you put it down or would you use the flat one? I'm not entirely sure. What's really important, though, is the towing capacity, because it comes standard, whether you have the big battery or the small one, rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, or even the Brabus, always with 1,600 kilograms, and that's really solid. The nose weight is also impressive. It doesn't sit at 75 kilos like competitors, no, it's a solid 100 kilos. And that's really interesting for e-bikes, especially. That's about the trunk. I'll close it and we'll talk about charging. There's a really cool mechanism here. With just one click, the charging flap moves back like this. The argument that it's positioned on the left side really isn't so bad, simply because it barely extends into traffic and even the mirror is positioned further out. And recently at a driving event with the Renault 4 here in Portugal, I learned that it's actually quite smart to relocate the charging port to the rear. Positioning it on the left or front left is ideal for garages where you park right up against the wall, since you'll still need to exit the car as the driver. And you've got access back there as well. That really opened my eyes to the idea of a left side charging port, since most people would naturally assume right is better because it's facing the sidewalk and the AC charging is supposed to be there as well. AC is also a good keyword. The small battery charges at 11 kilowatts as standard. With that setup, you'll be fully charged from 0 to 100% in roughly 8 hours or so. Completely sufficient to charge the car overnight. All the larger batteries, though, with 800 volts and 94 kilowatt hours, charge visually with 22 kilowatts. And that's just really cool, especially when you say, hey, I want this, even if I maybe can't charge it at home. Then you can actually charge up the large battery at urban AC stations in roughly around 5 hours or so, easily. And that's really brilliant. In the DC realm, you're even faster. That means in under 18 minutes from 10 to 80%, thanks to 800 volts. And up to 400 kilowatt charging capacity, or up to 150 kilowatt charging capacity, taking just under 30 minutes from 10 to 80% for the smaller battery. Lots of numbers, lots of back and forth, but I hope you understood it. I took too long, even the charging flap closed by itself. I really like the mechanism and the charging power is absolutely brilliant. Let me know in the comments if you feel the same way. What has been missing so far were the prices, and here it starts at 45,900 euros for the smaller battery. For the larger battery, the 800 volt system, and the fast charging, you'll need to add 5,000 euros. Starting at 50,900 euros, you can get it. It comes optionally in various packages. There's also a more off-road style version, and naturally, there's the Brabus model. That one starts at 60,900 euros, so 10,000 euros more than the smallest variant with the large battery. Go ahead and click through the configurator. There are different packages and features. From the build and exterior quality alone, the car leaves absolutely nothing to be desired. Truly impressive in every aspect. This is really solid, whether it's the panel gaps, the build quality, or the choice of materials. It's all really well done. A matte finish like this requires precise application, particularly when you're tackling additional challenges such as incorporating this special insert here. You don't have to do that, especially with matte finishes that never match up perfectly. To pull that off without noticing any color difference here, I think is really impressive. And I also like the aerodynamic rims, but Smart has understood the system and the topic of aerodynamics from the very beginning, because rims like these, similar ones, were already present on the #1. Completely different from the #1 is the interior. We'll go into more detail during the driving impression, also about the software, for example, because I think that the car parked here doesn't yet have the final software version, and the test vehicles are already a bit closer to that final state. It's important to show you a production version here. You know how software is? I pay close attention to that. The interior, however, strongly resembles the new Mercedes CLA. I haven't sat in it myself yet, but I've seen pictures, and it just looks very similar. That means a high center console, 2 wireless chargers, storage space underneath, a generously sized center console here in the rear area, and of course this massive dual display panel. That's not yet included in the base version at the moment. On the right, there's an animation, some ambient lighting, or similar. There's only the middle 13-inch display available, but then in the higher tier models, you'll actually find 2 of them included. And that's really impressive. Being able to use all the apps across 2 displays, sliding them back and forth, and getting so much done, it's a powerhouse. And you also need to be powered up. And here, it's running pretty smoothly at first glance. Whether I go into Spotify here or other apps, it's well done and looks solid, and everything feels quite intuitive to use. And let's test the route planning together. Where to go? Starting from Porto, I'd like to head towards Lisbon, for example. To Madrid, let's enter the destination and see how the car handles it. Directions, please. Let's get started now. So, loading the route now. I'll take you live. It's already planned. However, it's still without charging stops. Those are being added now, and I can see accordingly here. When I click on the charging option at the bottom, on one hand, I can clearly see exactly where I run out of battery. And now I only get the charging stations along the route. That's not what I want. I would like to have the charging stations planned in, and it should definitely be able to do that. And it did. Here. Okay. Add a charging station. Addition. Then it does it. So, you're first reminded, hey, you need chargers. Do you want to add them? Then I click on yes, and then they'll be added as well. And then I'll now get the corresponding info here with all the points. That means once I load at 13% and then again at 13%. I find it pretty cool. I'm not seeing filtering options right now, but I'll ask about them and share them with you because I know that you should at least be able to filter by speed. But it's planning the route for us, and that's already very important to me because, and this is crucial, anyone who's never driven an electric car before can just get in and go. That doesn't mean you always have to do it that way. I know myself, you usually just go where it makes sense at the time, but it takes away the fear of driving electric, and this car here does that very well behind the... In the steering wheel, I then have the driver information display with the essential details, the car prominently in the center, and there's also a head-up display. And in here, there's the sound system, which was developed in collaboration with Sennheiser. I'm really curious to hear how it sounds, but I'll save that for the driving experience to show you. Overall, the car feels much more premium. Up here, we have soft materials and wood inlays. The seat adjustment has moved to the door, much like what you'd find in a Mercedes, for example. So Smart is increasingly becoming a premium manufacturer, even though it's still really attractively priced, at least in my opinion. I'm always not sure where you're supposed to make big compromises. Maybe in the driving experience, we'll see. I'm not a fan of brown interiors, and that doesn't change here when I look at the door and see the gold wood and brown. It all feels very dated, I think, which is a shame because the car actually looks so fresh. I like the exterior color. Inside, I'd maybe go for something lighter as a contrast, but there are options there. What's cool, though, is that seam here, which is also in the front, it's really well done. And even down here, the door is soft. Now go ahead and show me that same feature with any current premium manufacturer. I don't personally find it important because at the bottom, it can be hard for all I care, but it shows they really wanted to go the extra mile with that detail. This oval shape is making its way everywhere, whether it's in front of a display here at the back or even in small details like these. There's also nice ambient lighting everywhere. And here, for example, there's 60-watt charging at the back. And that's just cool if, as a passenger, you want to charge your MacBook or something like that. A center armrest. Surely can't be skipped when it's needed. And it feels good too. It's going up a bit now because the seat here is quite reclined. But I've got extra cup holders here and some storage space underneath. There's also a small shelf right here for convenience. It's done really nicely. And the rear seats can also be adjusted directly from the door. It looks pretty cool, leaning forward, but the bottom button doesn't seem to have any effect at all. So here I can press and do whatever I want, but the seat base itself doesn't move at all. Only the backrest can be adjusted. But it truly is premium. And I haven't even mentioned the glass roof until this moment. It's large and comes with a shade. That's important to many of you. ISOFIX is available on the outer rear seats and on the front passenger seat. That's it for the first static impression. Since I couldn't make it to the studio, it was important to me to show you the car again here before the driving experience. I know this often gets overlooked during the drive itself. That's why I thought we'd take the time for it. Nothing's really starting this afternoon. Didn't want to interview the CEO now. That's why I'd rather just show you the car instead. And naturally, I'm really curious to hear what you all think of it. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely impressed. It already looked fantastic in the photos. Now, seeing it in real life as a production car, not just a concept, is seriously impressive and cool, and I can't wait to get in and drive it tomorrow. If you don't want to miss out, make sure to subscribe to the channel up here. And below is the earlier mentioned video of the concept study.